He signed the document without looking up. The woman in the delivery uniform didn't rush him. She waited. 3 hours later, his 18-month deal vanished, stolen by a company that shouldn't exist. When his phone rang, the voice on the other end said calmly, "You shouldn't dismiss people before knowing who they are." What he didn't know was that the black woman he ignored had just taken everything he worked for. And she wasn't done yet. If you're ready for a story where arrogance meets consequences, hit subscribe right now. And before we go any further, comment where you're watching from, because this story is about to get personal. Ji-Hoon Kim barely glanced up when the delivery woman entered his penthouse office in downtown Boston. She wore a simple courier uniform, her dark skin catching the afternoon light streaming through the floor-to-ceiling windows. Her hair was pulled back in neat braids, and she carried a sealed envelope marked urgent. "Leave it. Leave." "On the desk," he said in Korean, not bothering to switch to English. His attention remained fixed on the contract spread before him. The Nakamura deal that would expand his family's legitimate shipping business across the East Coast. The woman didn't move. Ji-Hoon looked up then, irritation flickering across his features. "Did you hear me?" "I heard you," she replied in perfect Korean, her accent flawless. "But this requires a signature." Something in her voice made him pause. It wasn't defiant exactly. More like she knew something he didn't. He scrawled his signature on her digital pad without reading the document, eager to return to more important matters. She studied the signature for a moment longer than necessary. "Thank you, Mr. Kim." The door clicked shut behind her, and Ji-Hoon forgot about her immediately. He had bigger problems. His ex-fiancée's family was circling like sharks, trying to reclaim the warehouse properties they'd signed over during the engagement. His younger brother Tai-Yang kept pushing for riskier ventures. His mother called daily, demanding he reconcile with Min Seo and restore the family alliance. 3 hours later, his lawyer Sung-min burst through the door, face pale. "We have a problem," Sung-min said, hands shaking as he held up his phone. "The Nakamura deal. It's gone." "What do you mean, gone?" Ji-Hoon stood, his chair scraping against the hardwood. "Someone outbid us. Not just outbid. They had access to our entire proposal. They knew every number, every timeline, every contingency we'd planned." Sung-min's voice cracked. "They beat us by exactly 10% across the board. It's like they had our playbook." Ji-Hoon's mind raced through the possibilities. Corporate espionage wasn't uncommon in their world, but this level of precision suggested an inside source. Who was it? That's the strange part. Sung-min pulled up an email on his phone. The winning bid came from a company called Moremi International. I've never heard of them. They only registered in Massachusetts 6 months ago. The name meant nothing to Ji-Hoon. He grabbed his own phone, dialing his contacts in the business community. Nobody knew anything about Moremi International. It was as if they'd appeared from nowhere, perfectly positioned to destroy everything he'd worked toward. His phone buzzed, an unknown number. He almost ignored it, but something, maybe instinct, made him answer. "Mr. Kim." That voice again. The delivery woman. "I thought you might want to know what you signed earlier." His blood went cold. "What are you talking about?" "You authorized the transfer of all proprietary information regarding the Nakamura proposal to my employer. It was very clearly stated in the document, but I suppose you were too busy to read it." Her tone carried no mockery, just statement of fact. "My name is Adia Mensah, and you really shouldn't dismiss people before knowing who they are." The line went dead. Ji-Hoon stood frozen, the enormity of his mistake crashing over him. He'd been so arrogant, so certain of his position, that he'd handed his enemy the knife and shown them exactly where to strike. "Find her," he told Sung-min, his voice deadly quiet. "Find out everything about Adia Mensah and Moremi International. I want to know who I'm dealing with." But even as he said it, Ji-Hoon knew the damage was done. The Nakamura deal represented 18 months of negotiations, millions in projected revenue, and most importantly, his credibility as the next head of the Kim family business. Without it, his position was vulnerable. His phone rang again. His mother. "Ji-Hoon, I just heard about Nakamura." Her voice was ice. "Your father is very disappointed. Perhaps if you'd maintain the alliance with Min Seo's family—" "This has nothing to do with Min Seo," he interrupted, though even as he said it, doubt crept in. Could his ex have orchestrated this somehow? Revenge for calling off their engagement? "Everything has to do with family, my son. You would do well to remember that." His mother hung up. The next morning, Ji-Hoon stood outside a modest office building in Cambridge, watching the entrance. His research team had worked through the night. Moremi International occupied the third floor. Adia Mensah was listed as Director of Operations. The company specialized in international trade, specifically connecting African suppliers with American distributors, and they'd just secured the biggest shipping contract on the East Coast. He waited 3 hours before she emerged, wearing a burgundy suit that looked nothing like the courier uniform. She moved with quiet confidence, her phone pressed to her ear as she spoke in a language he didn't recognize, something melodic and complex. "Miss Mensah," he called out, stepping into her path. She ended her call, regarding him with those same knowing eyes from yesterday. "Mr. Kim, I wondered how long it would take you to find me." "We need to talk." "Do we?" She adjusted the leather portfolio under her arm. "I thought I was just a delivery person, not worth your attention." The jab landed cleanly. Ji-Hoon forced himself to stay calm. "I underestimated you. That was my mistake." "Yes, it was." She started walking, and he fell into step beside her. "But probably not your first one, and definitely not your last." "How did you know about the Nakamura deal?" Adia glanced at him, amusement playing at the corners of her mouth. "Mr. Kim, if you're asking me to confess to corporate espionage on a public street in broad daylight, you're not as smart as your reputation suggests." "Then what do you want? Money? A counteroffer?" She stopped walking, turning to face him fully. "I don't want anything from you. You had something I needed. Access to Nakamura's distribution network. You were careless enough to hand it to me. That's business." "This isn't over," Ji-Hoon said, hearing the threat in his own voice. "No," Adia agreed, her expression softening slightly. "I suppose it isn't. Your family will probably retaliate. You'll try to sabotage my operations. We'll dance around each other for months, wasting time and resources." She paused. Or you could accept that you lost this round and move on. There are other deals, Mr. Kim. Other opportunities. Easy for you to say. You just won. Something flickered in her eyes. Understanding, maybe. "I've lost plenty, believe me. That's how I learned to win." A black sedan pulled up to the curb, Adia's ride. She moved toward it, then hesitated. "For what it's worth, you should have read that document. I made sure it was legal, but I also made it very obvious what you were signing. I even highlighted the relevant sections." She opened the car door. "Maybe next time, don't assume everyone in front of you is beneath your notice." The sedan drove away, leaving Ji-Hoon on the sidewalk with the uncomfortable realization that she was right. He'd been so wrapped up in his own importance, so dismissive of anyone outside his immediate circle, that he'd made himself an easy target. His phone buzzed. Tae Yang. "Hyung, we need to talk about the warehouse situation. Min Seo's family just filed a lawsuit. They're claiming you promised those properties as part of the marriage settlement." "That's ridiculous. There was no marriage." "Yeah, well, they have emails. Your emails, apparently, discussing the transfer." Ji-Hoon closed his eyes. When he'd broken off the engagement 3 months ago, he'd been trying to extract himself cleanly. He'd offered concessions, made promises, anything to avoid a war between the families. Now those promises were being weaponized. "Tell them we'll negotiate," he said finally. "Father won't like that. He says you need to stand firm." Father isn't the one dealing with this mess. Ji-Hoon started walking back toward his car. Set up a meeting with Min Seo's family this week. Hyung, just do it, Tae-yang. He hung up and stood there for a moment, feeling the weight of his choices pressing down. Everything was unraveling. The Nakamura deal, the family alliances, his reputation. And at the center of it all was a woman from Eritrea who'd beaten him at his own game. That evening, Ji-Hoon sat in his penthouse staring at the city lights. His phone had been ringing all day. Business associates expressing concern, competitors smelling blood in the water, family members demanding explanations. He'd ignored them all. Instead, he found himself researching Adia Mensah. She'd come to the United States 7 years ago on a business scholarship, graduated top of her class from MIT, started Moremi International with private investors whose identities were carefully hidden. In just 6 months, she'd built something formidable, and he'd treated her like she was invisible. The next morning brought another surprise. Seung-min called with news that made no sense. Moremi International just announced a partnership with Chen Industries, his lawyer said, confusion evident in his voice. They're combining their logistics networks. Chen Industries was one of Ji-Hoon's main competitors. More importantly, it was run by David Chen, who'd been trying to push the Kim family out of Boston for years. This is coordinated, Ji-Hoon said, his mind connecting the pieces. She's not just taking the Nakamura deal, she's building an alliance against us. It looks that way, yeah. Seung-min hesitated. There's more. Min Seo was seen having lunch with David Chen yesterday. The implications hit like a physical blow. His ex-fiancée was working with his competitors. The warehouse lawsuit wasn't just about property. It was about weakening his position, making him vulnerable to a larger play. How bad is it? Ji-Hoon asked. If they coordinate? Very bad. We could lose half our contracts in the next quarter. Ji-Hoon ended the call and immediately dialed the number Adia had called from. She answered. On the third ring. Mr. Kim, 2 calls in 2 days. I'm flattered. We need to meet today. I'm busy. Please. The word tasted foreign in his mouth, but he forced it out. I'm asking, not demanding. Silence stretched between them. Then, there's a coffee shop on Newberry Street, Café Vittoria, 1 hour. She hung up before he could respond. Ji-Hoon arrived early, securing a corner table where they could talk privately. The cafe was busy with the lunch crowd, filled with students and professionals grabbing quick meals between meetings. He ordered an espresso and waited, watching the door. Adia arrived exactly on time, wearing jeans and a simple white blouse that somehow looked elegant on her. She ordered tea before joining him, her movements unhurried. So, she said, sitting down, what's this about? You're working with David Chen. I'm partnering with Chen Industries. Yes, David understands the value of what we're building. And Min Seo? Adia's eyebrows rose slightly. Your ex-fiancée? What about her? Don't play games. I know she met with Chen. Mr. Kim. Adia leaned back in her chair, studying him. I have no idea what your ex-fiancé is doing, and frankly, I don't care. My business decisions have nothing to do with your personal drama. He wanted to believe her, but the timing is suspicious. Or maybe, she said slowly, you've made enough enemies that they're all moving against you at the same time. That's not coordination. That's opportunity. The words stung because they were true. In his rush to consolidate power, to prove himself worthy of leading the family business, Ji-Hoon had been ruthless. He'd undercut competitors, dismissed partners, broken alliances. Now it was all coming back. I want to make a deal, he said, changing tactics. What kind of deal? You have the Nakamura contract, but you don't have the infrastructure to handle it long term. Not yet, anyway. You'll need warehouses, transportation networks, established relationships with customs officials. He met her eyes. I have all of that. Adia sipped her tea, considering. And in exchange? We split the contract, 50-50. You get legitimacy and resources. I salvage something from this disaster. Interesting. She set down her cup. But I notice you're not offering friendship or trust. Just business. This is business. Is it? Adia tilted her head. Because from where I'm sitting, this looks like desperation. You're bleeding from multiple wounds, and you're hoping I'll be stupid enough to throw you a bandage. Ji-Hoon's jaw tightened. So that's a no. I didn't say that. She pulled out her phone, scrolling through something. I'm saying your offer is insulting. 50-50 when I have 100%? When I earn this through better planning and execution? She looked up. Try again. 60-40 in your favor. 70-30, and you provide all the infrastructure at cost. No markup. He did the math. Quickly. It would save the family business, but barely. His father would be furious. His mother would never let him forget it. But the alternative was losing everything. Fine, he said finally. 70-30. Adia smiled then, the first genuine smile he'd seen from her. It transformed her face, softening the sharp intelligence in her eyes. Good. Now we're negotiating like adults. They spent the next hour hammering out details. Adia was sharp, catching every loophole he tried to leave himself, but she was also fair. She didn't push for more than was reasonable. By the time they finished, Ji-Hoon had a grudging respect for her. Can I ask you something? He said as they prepared to leave. You can ask. I might not answer. Why did you really come to my office that day? You could have sent anyone to deliver that document. Adia gathered her things, taking her time with the answer. I wanted to see if the rumors were true, if you were really as arrogant as people said. She met his eyes. Turns out you are, but maybe you're also capable of learning. We'll see. She left him sitting there with his espresso and his thoughts. Part 2. The partnership changed everything, but not in the ways Ji-Hoon expected. Over the next 2 weeks, he found himself working closely with Adia's team, integrating their operations. She ran her business differently than he did. Less hierarchy, more collaboration. Her employees actually seemed to like working for her. You're micromanaging again, Adia said during one meeting, not looking up from her laptop. They were in a conference room in his office reviewing shipping schedules. I'm ensuring quality control. No, you're checking Daniel's work for the 3rd time because you don't trust him to do it right. She finally glanced up. He has a PhD in supply chain management. He knows what he's doing. Ji-Hoon wanted to argue but couldn't. She was right. He was micromanaging. It was a habit formed from years of working with people who needed constant oversight, but Adia's team was different. They were competent, motivated, and actually took initiative. It's hard to let go, he admitted. I know, but you hired good people. Probably. So let them be good. She closed her laptop. Besides, we have bigger problems. Min Seo's lawsuit. That, and the fact that your brother is meeting with our competitors. Ji-Hoon's head snapped up. What? Adia pulled up photos on her phone. Tae-yang sitting in a restaurant with David Chen and 2 other men Ji-Hoon recognized as rivals. The timestamps showed they were from last night. Where did you get these? I have people who watch for potential problems. She said it casually, like corporate surveillance was normal. Maybe in her world it was. The question is, what are you going to do about it? Ji-Hoon stared at the photos, anger and betrayal warring in his chest. Tae-yang was his brother, his family. But lately, his younger brother had been pushing for changes in the business. Riskier ventures, faster expansion, less caution. They'd argued about it repeatedly. I'll talk to him, Ji-Hoon said finally. Talking didn't work so well with me, Adia pointed out. Maybe try listening this time. The observation hit harder than it should have. When had he become someone who talked instead of listened? When had he started believing his own authority was more important than actual communication? That night, Ji-Hoon found Tae-yang at their family's restaurant in Chinatown. The place was empty except for staff cleaning up after dinner service. His brother sat at the bar, nursing a whiskey. "Hyung," Tae-yang said, not turning around. "I wondered when you'd show up." "Want to explain the photos?" "Not really." Tae-yang finished his drink, signaling for another. "But I suppose you'll insist." Ji-Hoon sat beside him, studying his brother's profile. Tae-yang was 3 years younger, but sometimes seemed decades older, where Ji-Hoon had followed. Their father's path exactly. His brother had always questioned, always pushed back. "Just tell me," Ji-Hoon said quietly. "Chen made me an offer, a good one. He wants me to run his East Coast operations." Tae-young finally looked at him. "He said I'd have real authority, not just be the younger brother waiting for scraps." The words cut deeper than any business betrayal could have. "Is that how you see yourself? Waiting for scraps?" "How else should I see it?" Tae-yang's voice rose slightly. "Everything goes through you, every decision, every deal, every plan. I'm just there to execute your vision. Because I'm the eldest. Because that's how Father is old, Hyung. His way of doing business, it doesn't work anymore. You're so busy trying to be him that you can't see we're losing ground." Tae-yang gestured around them. "This partnership with Adia Mensah? That's the first smart thing you've done in months, and you only did it because she forced your hand." Ji-Hoon wanted to argue, but couldn't. His brother was right. About all of it. He'd been so focused on living up to his father's expectations, on proving himself worthy of leadership, that he'd stopped actually leading. "So you're leaving," Ji-Hoon said flatly. "I don't know yet." Tae-young's shoulders slumped. "I don't want to betray the family, but I also don't want to spend the next 20 years being invisible." They sat in silence for a long moment, the only sound the clink of glasses as the staff worked around them. "What if—" Ji-Hoon hesitated, the words difficult. "What if you ran the Moremi partnership? Full authority. You report to me and Adia, but the day-to-day operations are yours." Tae-yang turned to stare at him. "You're serious. You want responsibility? Prove you can handle it. But do it with family, not with David Chen." His brother's eyes glistened slightly. "Hyung, don't make me regret this," Ji-Hoon said, standing. "And maybe sometimes tell me when I'm being an idiot. I apparently need to hear it more often." Tae-yang laughed, the sound slightly broken. "Deal." Ji-Hoon left the restaurant feeling lighter somehow, despite the chaos still swirling around him. He'd taken a risk, trusting his brother with real power, but maybe that was the point. Maybe trust was always a risk. His phone buzzed. Adia. "I heard you made Tae-yang an offer," she texted. "Smart move, see? You can learn." He found himself smiling despite everything. "How do you already know about that?" "I have my sources. Plus your brother texted me 5 minutes ago asking about logistics protocols. He's eager. I like that." "Are you spying on my entire family?" "Just the interesting parts. Dinner tomorrow? We should celebrate." Ji-Hoon stared at the message. Was she asking him on a date? Or was this business? With Adia, it was hard to tell where one ended and the other began. "Where?" he typed. "There's an Eritrean restaurant in Cambridge. Asmara. Ever had. Injera?" "No." "Perfect. 7 p.m. Don't be late." The restaurant was small, tucked between a bookstore and a dry cleaner. Ji-Hoon almost walked past it twice before spotting the modest sign. Inside, colorful textiles hung on the walls, and the air smelled of spices he couldn't identify. Adia was already there, sitting at a corner table and talking with the owner in that melodic language he'd heard her speak before. She wore a flowing dress in deep purple, her braids loose around her shoulders. "You came," she said, sounding genuinely pleased. "I wasn't sure you would." "Why wouldn't I?" "Because this isn't your world. It's not expensive or exclusive. No one here knows who you are or cares about your family name." She gestured for him to sit. "Some people find that uncomfortable." Ji-Hoon settled into his chair, realizing she was testing him again. Or maybe some people find it refreshing. That earned him another smile. The owner brought a large platter covered in what looked like a spongy flatbread topped with various stews and vegetables. Adia explained how to eat it, tearing off pieces of injera and using them to scoop up the food. "No utensils?" Ji-Hoon asked, slightly uncomfortable. "Not traditionally, no, but I can ask for a fork if you need one." He heard the challenge in her voice. "I'll manage." The food was unlike anything he'd tasted. Complex layers of flavor, spicy but not overwhelming. He watched how Adia ate, trying to copy her movements without looking completely awkward. "You're thinking too hard," she said, amusement in her voice. "Just relax. Enjoy it." "I'm not good at relaxing." "I've noticed." She tore off a piece of injera, scooped up some lentil stew, and leaned forward. "Open." Ji-Hoon froze. "What?" "It's traditional. Feeding someone is a sign of respect and friendship." Her eyes held his. "Unless you're uncomfortable with that." He opened his mouth, letting her place the food on his tongue. It was intimate in a way that had nothing to do with romance, more like trust, vulnerability. She could have made it awkward, but instead it felt natural. "Good?" she asked. "Very good," he admitted. They ate in comfortable silence for a while, the restaurant filling up around them with families and couples. Ji-Hoon found himself watching Adia, the way she laughed with the owner, how she greeted other customers in their language, the ease with which she moved through this space that was so completely foreign to him. "Tell me about Eritrea," he said suddenly. She looked surprised. "What do you want to know?" "Anything, everything." He gestured helplessly. "I realized I don't know anything about where you come from." Adia set down the injera she'd been holding, her expression softening. "It's a small country on the Horn of Africa. Beautiful. Mountains and coastline and history that goes back thousands of years, but also complicated. We gained independence from Ethiopia in 1993 after 30 years of war. That's recent. Very recent. My parents, they lived through the war. My father was a freedom fighter. My mother worked as a nurse in the field hospitals." She paused, memories flickering across her face. "They wanted better for me. So when I got the scholarship to MIT, they sold almost everything to make sure I could come here and focus on studying instead of working 3 jobs. That's why you built Moremi International," Ji-Hoon said, understanding clicking into place. "You're trying to create opportunities between your country and America. Not just Eritrea, all of East Africa. There's so much talent, so many resources, but the systems don't exist to connect suppliers with markets." Her eyes lit up as she talked, passion evident in every word. "I want to build those bridges, make it easier for people like my parents to benefit from global trade." Ji-Hoon felt something shift inside him. He'd been so focused on winning, on proving himself, that he'd forgotten why business mattered. In the first place, Adia had a vision beyond profit. She was building something meaningful. "I've been selfish," he said quietly. "What?" "My whole approach to business, it's been about legacy, about proving myself to my father, about maintaining the family name." He met her eyes. "But you're actually trying to help people. I forgot that was even possible." Adia reached across the table, her hand covering his. The touch was brief, but it sent warmth spreading through his chest. "You're not selfish, Ji-Hoon. You're just lost, maybe. Trying to be who you think you should be instead of figuring out who you actually are." No one had ever spoken to him like that, so directly, without fear or flattery. It should have made him angry, but instead he felt seen in a way he hadn't experienced in years. "How did you get so wise?" he asked, trying to lighten the mood. "I'm not wise. I just spent a lot of time being lost, too." She pulled her hand back, but the warmth remained. "When I first came here, I tried so hard to fit in. change my clothes, my speech patterns, even considered straightening my hair. I thought if I could just be American enough, things would be easier. What changed? My mother came to visit. She saw what I was doing and asked me a question. Adia's voice grew soft. She said, "Did we fight for our freedom so you could be ashamed of who you are?" And I realized I was trying to erase myself to make other people comfortable. That's not strength. That's surrender. Ji-Hoon thought about his own life, the rigid adherence to his father's way, the refusal to innovate or question, the belief that tradition mattered more than adaptation. Maybe he'd been surrendering too, just in a different way. "I want to do better," he said, surprised by his own honesty. "Then do better." Adia smiled. "Lucky for you, you're working with someone who won't let you settle for mediocrity." They talked for hours, long after the food was finished. Adia told him about growing up in Asmara, about the music and the festivals and the coffee ceremonies that could last for hours. Ji-Hoon found himself sharing things he'd never told anyone. His doubts about the family business, his fear of failing his parents, his loneliness despite being surrounded by people. "You're not alone," Adia said as they finally left the restaurant. The night air was cool, Cambridge quiet around them. "You have Tae Yang, you have your team, and now you have me. As a friend, at least." "At least," Ji-Hoon echoed, something hopeful stirring in his chest. They stood on the sidewalk, neither quite ready to say goodbye. A car passed, its headlights briefly illuminating Adia's face. She was beautiful, Ji-Hoon realized, not in the conventional way he'd always been taught to recognize, but in something deeper, more essential. "I should go," Adia said, but didn't move. "Yeah," Ji-Hoon agreed, also not moving. She laughed then, the sound bright in the darkness. "This is ridiculous. We're both grown adults." "Ridiculous," he repeated, smiling. Adia stepped closer, rising on her toes to press a soft kiss to his forehead. The gesture was gentle, almost reverent, and it made Ji-Hoon's heart skip in a way that had nothing to do with business or strategy. "Good night, Ji-Hoon," she whispered. "Good night, Adia." He watched her walk to her car, watched her drive away, and stood there on the empty street feeling like something fundamental had shifted. The chaos of his life hadn't disappeared. Min Seo's lawsuit still loomed, his family still had expectations, the business still faced challenges. But for the first time in months, maybe years, Ji-Hoon felt like he had an ally, someone who saw him clearly and chose to stand beside him anyway. His phone buzzed. His mother. "Ji-Hoon, we need to talk about this partnership. Your father is concerned you're making emotional decisions." He almost laughed. If only she knew. "Mother, I'll call you tomorrow, I promise. We'll discuss everything. But tomorrow, good night." He hung up before she could protest, feeling a small thrill of rebellion. Maybe that was what Adia had given him. Not just business savvy or strategic insight, but permission to make his own choices, to be himself, whoever that turned out to be. The next morning brought crisis. Seung-min called at 6 a.m., his voice urgent. "Turn on the news, Channel 5. Ji-Hoon grabbed his remote, flipping to the local station. A reporter stood outside one of his family's warehouses, emergency vehicles flashing behind her. Fire broke out around 3 a.m. Authorities are investigating the cause, but early reports suggest possible arson. The warehouse, owned by the Kim family shipping company, was one of several properties currently at the center of a legal dispute. The screen showed footage of flames consuming the building, firefighters spraying water uselessly against the inferno. Ji-Hoon's stomach dropped. That warehouse contained inventory worth millions. Goods waiting for distribution, equipment, records. His phone started ringing. His father, his brother, Adia, business partners, insurance companies. The cacophony was overwhelming. He answered Adia first. "Did you see? I'm already at your office. Get here now." She hung up before he could respond. Ji-Hoon threw on clothes and drove through the empty morning streets, his mind racing. Arson meant enemies. It meant someone willing to escalate beyond legal battles into actual violence. Adia was in his office when he arrived, along with Tae-young and Seung-min. She'd clearly been there for hours. Coffee cups littered the conference table, and her laptop displayed what looked like surveillance footage and financial reports. "Talk to me," Ji-Hoon said, his voice rough. "The good news is most of the high-value inventory was moved last week as part of our consolidation," Adia said, all business. "The bad news is this was targeted. Someone knew which warehouse to hit to cause maximum disruption with minimum actual loss." "How is that bad news?" "Because it means they have inside information. Someone close to your operations is feeding them data." Ji-Hoon felt cold spread through his limbs. "A mole." "A mole," Tae-yang confirmed, looking grim. "And we think we know who." He pulled up an email chain on his laptop. Messages between someone using an encrypted account and David Chen, discussing warehouse layouts, security schedules, inventory rotations. "Where did you get this?" Ji-Hoon demanded. "Adia's security team hacked Chen's servers last night after the fire," Tae-yang said. His voice held admiration. "She's terrifying when she wants to be." Adia didn't smile. "The question isn't how we got the information. It's what we do with it. Because look at the signature on these emails." Ji-Hoon leaned closer, reading the encrypted signature. His heart stopped. Min Seo. His ex-fiancée wasn't just suing him. She was actively sabotaging his business, feeding information to his competitors, and now, possibly committing arson. "We need to go to the police," Seung-min said. "No," Adia cut him off. "We need to be smart about this. If we go public now, Min Seo's family will close ranks. They have lawyers, money, influence. We need leverage first." "What kind of leverage?" Ji-Hoon asked, though part of him already knew the answer. "The kind that makes them want to settle quietly." Adia's eyes were hard. "Min Seo isn't working alone. These emails reference other people, family members, business associates. If we can prove conspiracy, we can threaten to bring down her entire network." Ji-Hoon paced to the window, staring out at the Boston skyline. The sun was rising, painting the buildings in shades of gold and pink, beautiful and terrible all at once. "I loved her once," he said quietly, "or I thought I did. We were arranged to marry. Our families thought it was perfect, but she wanted power more than partnership, control, more than connection." "Is that why you ended it?" Adia asked, her voice gentle. "Partly, mostly. I realized I was marrying her for the wrong reasons, to please my parents, to strengthen alliances, but never because I actually wanted to spend my life with her." He turned back to face them. "Maybe that's why she's so angry. I rejected her, but I also rejected what she represents, the old way of doing things." "Well, the old way is trying to destroy you," Tae-young pointed out. "So maybe it's time to fight back." They spent the day building their case. Adia's security team pulled more emails, financial records showing payments from Min Seo's family to known arsonists, communications that proved premeditation. It was damning evidence, the kind that could send people to prison. By evening, they had enough. Ji-Hoon arranged a meeting with Min Seo and her father for the next day. Neutral ground, a private room at a hotel downtown. "Are you sure you want to do this?" Adia asked as they prepared to leave. Everyone else had gone home, leaving them alone in the darkening office. "No," Ji-Hoon admitted, "but I don't see another choice." Adia moved closer, her hand finding his. "You have me, whatever happens tomorrow. You're not alone in this." He pulled her into a hug, surprising them both. She fit against him perfectly, her warmth seeping through his shirt. They stood like that for a long moment, drawing strength from each other. "Thank you," Ji-Hoon whispered against her hair. "For everything, for seeing me, for believing I could do better." Adia pulled back slightly, looking up at him. Her eyes were soft, vulnerable in a way he'd never seen. "You're worth believing in, Ji-Hoon. even when you don't believe in yourself. She rose on her toes again, pressing another kiss to his forehead, this time slower, more deliberate. Her lips lingered, and Ji-Hoon closed his eyes, memorizing the feeling. When she pulled away, he caught her hand, bringing it to his lips. The kiss was gentle, respectful, but charged with everything they weren't saying. "Whatever happens tomorrow," he said, "I'm glad you're part of this, part of my life." "Me too," Adia whispered. They left together, walking out into the night with their hands still intertwined. The city stretched around them, full of possibility and danger in equal measure. But for the first time since this all began, Ji-Hoon didn't feel afraid. He felt ready. Part 3. The hotel conference room was elegant and cold, expensive furniture arranged to suggest cooperation, while the atmosphere dripped with hostility. Mensah arrived with her father, 2 lawyers, and an air of absolute confidence. She wore a designer suit, her hair pulled back severely, every inch the corporate warrior. "Ji-Hoon," she said, her voice icy, "I have to say I'm surprised you wanted to meet. I thought you'd given up on trying to salvage this disaster you've created." Her father, Chairman Park, looked equally unmoved. He was a man used to getting his way, accustomed to watching others bend to his will. Ji-Hoon had once tried desperately to earn his approval. Not anymore. "Please sit," Ji-Hoon said calmly. Adia sat beside him, Tae-Yang and Seung-min flanking them. They'd brought no lawyers, just evidence. "Where's your legal team?" Chairman Park asked, his tone suggesting this was some kind of surrender. "We don't need them," Adia said simply. She opened her laptop, turning it so Mensah and her father could see the screen. "Because this isn't a negotiation. It's an intervention." The emails appeared, one after another. Communications between Mensah and David Chen, financial transfers to known criminals, detailed plans for the warehouse fire, security footage showing someone matching Mensah's description meeting with suspected arsonists. Mensah's face went pale. Her father's expression hardened into stone. "This is fabricated," Mensah said, but her voice shook slightly. "You're manufacturing evidence because you're desperate." "We pulled these from Chen's servers," Tae-Yang said, his voice hard, "along with financial records that prove payments originated from accounts controlled by your family. We have timestamps, IP addresses, digital signatures, everything we'd need to take to federal prosecutors." "You're threatening us," Chairman Park said, but there was uncertainty in his eyes now. "We're offering you a choice," Ji-Hoon corrected. "Drop the lawsuit, publicly announce that it was filed in error and that our families have resolved their differences amicably. Distance yourself from David Chen and any associates involved in this conspiracy." "And if we refuse?" Mensah asked, trying to reclaim some authority. Adia leaned forward, her voice perfectly calm. "Then we go public, not just with this evidence, but with everything. Your family's ties to organized crime, the money laundering we found in your offshore accounts, the bribes paid to city officials." She paused. "We'll destroy you, completely and very publicly." The silence that followed was suffocating. Chairman Park's jaw worked, fury and calculation warring on his face. Mensah looked like she might be sick. "You wouldn't dare," she finally said. "The scandal would hurt you too." "Would it?" Ji-Hoon asked. "I'm the victim here, Mensah. You burned down my warehouse. You conspired with my competitors. You tried to ruin me because I had the audacity to choose my own path instead of the one you wanted." He kept his voice level, almost gentle. "The scandal would be all yours." Chairman Park stood abruptly. "We need time to consider." "You have 24 hours, Adia said. "After that, we file with the FBI." They left in a flurry of expensive coats and barely controlled rage. When the door closed behind them, Ji-Hoon felt his legs go weak. He'd been running on adrenaline and determination, but now the reality of what they'd done crashed over him. "Did that actually just happen?" Tae-Yang asked, sounding slightly awed. It happened, Adia confirmed. She was watching Ji-Hoon with concern. Are you okay? I just threatened my ex-fiancé and her entire family with federal prosecution, Ji-Hoon said, slightly hysterical laughter bubbling up. My mother is going to kill me. Your mother will get over it, Sung-min said pragmatically, especially when she realizes you just saved the family business. The call came 18 hours later. Chairman Park's lawyer requesting a meeting to discuss terms of settlement. By that evening, they had everything in writing. Withdrawal of the lawsuit, public statements clearing the Kim family of wrongdoing, and a formal severing of ties between the Park and Chen families. It was over. We should celebrate, Tae-young said that night, pulling out a bottle of expensive whiskey in Ji-Hoon's office. This is huge, Hyung. We actually won. We survived, Ji-Hoon corrected, but he was smiling. There's a difference. Adia accepted a glass, though. She barely sipped it. She'd been quieter than usual since the settlement, her mind clearly elsewhere. What are you thinking? Ji-Hoon asked after his brother and lawyer had left. I'm thinking, she said slowly, that this was easier than it should have been. Min-seo folded too quickly. Her father accepted terms that were basically total surrender. Maybe they realized they had no choice. Maybe. But Adia didn't sound convinced. Or maybe they have something else planned, another angle we're not seeing. Ji-Hoon wanted to dismiss her concerns, to believe the threat was really over. But he'd learned to trust Adia's instincts. They'd been right too many times to ignore. What do you suggest? We stay vigilant, keep monitoring their communications, watch for unusual activity. She set down her glass. And we move forward with our own plans. The best defense is being too successful to stop. Over the next few weeks, they did exactly that. The Nakamura contract went live with Tae-yang managing operations so smoothly that even their father had to admit it was working. New partnerships formed. Adia's connections in East Africa combined with Ji-Hoon's infrastructure to create opportunities neither could have achieved alone. The business grew. More importantly, Ji-Hoon grew. He found himself delegating more, trusting his team to make decisions without his constant oversight. He started attending Adia's cultural events, Eritrean community gatherings where he was often the only Korean person in the room, but where he was welcomed with warmth and curiosity. He learned to eat with his hands without feeling awkward, to appreciate music that sounded nothing like what he'd grown up with, to see the world through perspectives he'd never considered. And slowly, carefully, his relationship with Adia deepened. They still worked together constantly, but now there were dinners that weren't about business. Long walks through different Boston neighborhoods where Adia would point out restaurants or shops tied to various immigrant communities, movie nights at her apartment where they'd watch films from Eritrea or Korea, trying to explain cultural references to each other. This scene, Adia said during one movie, pausing on a family gathering. The way everyone argues but still loves each other. That's my family exactly. We're loud and opinionated and we never agree on anything, but we show up for each other. My family isn't like that, Ji-Hoon admitted. We're quieter about our feelings, probably, more formal. Sometimes I think we forget how to just be together without an agenda. Maybe you could change that, Adia suggested gently. You've changed so much already. Why not this too? He tried. Called his parents more often, not just for business updates, but to actually talk. Spent time with Tae-young doing things that had nothing to do with work, going to baseball games, trying new restaurants, just being brothers instead of business. Partners, his mother noticed. You seem different, she said during one visit. Happier, maybe. I am, Ji-Hoon agreed. It's this partnership, isn't it? This woman, Adia. His mother's tone was carefully neutral. Partly, yes. His mother was quiet for a long moment. Your father and I, we had an arranged marriage. It worked for us because we wanted the same things. But you... She reached across the table, covering his hand with hers. You were never going to be happy with that path, even when you tried to be. Ji-Hoon looked up, surprised. You knew? A mother knows her son. She smiled sadly. We pushed you toward Min-seo because we thought it was right. We were wrong. Are you saying? I'm saying, do what makes you happy, Ji-Hoon. Life is too short for anything else. He left his parents' house feeling lighter than he had in years. Maybe things really were changing. Maybe the old ways weren't the only ways. 2 months after the settlement, Adia organized a gala to celebrate Moremi International's expansion. It was held at a museum in Boston. The space transformed with decorations that blended East African and Korean aesthetics. Investors mingled with community leaders. Business partners chatted with cultural ambassadors. Ji-Hoon arrived in a tailored suit, but Adia had surprised him with a gift, a traditional Korean vest to wear over his shirt, but made with Eritrean fabric patterns. It was a perfect fusion of their worlds. You look good, Adia said when she saw him. She wore a stunning dress in gold and deep green, her braids swept up elegantly. The vest works. You have good taste, Ji-Hoon replied, unable to stop staring at her. You're beautiful. She smiled, a slight blush coloring her cheeks. Flattery will get you somewhere, but probably not where you think. Where will it get me? To the dance floor. Come on, they're playing music from both our cultures. You should learn. She pulled him into the crowd, and suddenly they were dancing. Not formally, but with joy and laughter. Other couples joined them, the whole room coming alive with movement and sound. Ji-Hoon felt like he'd stepped into a different world, one where boundaries dissolved and people connected across their differences. This is what I wanted to build, Adia said, loud enough to be heard over the music. Not just a business, but a bridge, a way for people to see each other's humanity. You did it, Ji-Hoon told her. This is amazing. We did it, she corrected. This doesn't work without partnership, without trust. The song ended, transitioning into something slower. Couples paired off, swaying gently. Ji-Hoon hesitated, then offered his hand. May I? Adia took it, letting him pull her close. They moved together easily, naturally, like they'd been doing this for years instead of months. Her head rested against his shoulder, and Ji-Hoon breathed in the scent of her perfume. Something floral and warm. Can I tell you something? He asked quietly. Always. I think I'm falling for you. The words came out rushed, nervous. I know that might complicate things, and I don't want to ruin what we've built, but I needed you to know. Adia pulled back just enough to look at him, her eyes searching his face. Ji-Hoon. You don't have to say anything, he said quickly. I needed to be honest. Stop talking, she said, but she was smiling. Let me say this. I'm falling for you too. Have been for a while, probably. But I was scared. Scared of what? Of messing this up, of losing you if it doesn't work. She took a breath. Of being hurt again. Again? Adia's expression grew distant. I was engaged once, too, back in graduate school. He was brilliant, ambitious, everything I thought I wanted. But when things got hard, when I had to choose between him and my dreams, he couldn't handle not being the center of my world. I'm not him, Ji-Hoon said firmly. I know, but fear isn't always rational. She leaned her forehead against his, their noses almost touching. I'm trying to be brave enough to believe this could work. We'll figure it out together, Ji-Hoon promised. No matter what happens, we'll face it together. She kissed his cheek then, soft and sweet. Together sounds good. They stayed on the dance floor for hours, caught up in the music and each other. Ji-Hoon couldn't remember the last time he'd felt this content, this certain that he was exactly where he was supposed to be. But Adia's earlier warning proved prescient. 3 days later, the first article appeared. It was in a business journal, seemingly innocuous. A piece about Moremi International's rapid expansion and partnership with the Kim family business. But buried in the middle were questions. about Adia's funding sources, about unexplained gaps in her financial disclosures, about possible connections to questionable overseas investors. "This is deliberate," Sung-min said, reading through the article. "Someone fed them this information." "Min Seo?" Tae-young suggested. "Or her father," Adia said, her voice tight. "We thought they'd accepted defeat. Turns out they just changed tactics." More articles followed over the next week, each one raising more questions, casting doubt on Adia's integrity. Anonymous sources claimed she'd cut corners, bribed officials, engaged in practices that would make any legitimate business distance themselves from her. It was all lies, but that didn't matter. The damage was being done. "We need to respond," Ji-Hoon said during an emergency meeting. "Issue statements, provide documentation, prove it's all false." "No," Adia said quietly. "That's what they want. For us to get defensive, to look guilty. The more we deny, the more people will wonder if there's truth to it." "Then what do? We go on offense." Adia's eyes were hard. "We find who's really behind this and we expose them. Fight fire with fire." "That's risky," Sung-min warned. "If we're wrong." "We're not wrong," Adia interrupted. "The Park family has ties to media outlets. I've seen the ownership structures. They're using their influence to plant these stories." "Can you prove it?" Ji-Hoon asked. "Give me 48 hours. She disappeared into her work, her security team pulling records and tracking digital footprints. Ji-Hoon tried to help but mostly felt useless. This was Adia's area of expertise, not his. On the second day, his mother called. "Ji-Hoon, I'm getting calls from business associates. They're asking if the rumors about your partner are true." "They're not, Mother. It's a smear campaign." "I believe you, but others won't be so understanding." She paused. "Your father wants you to distance yourself from this, publicly, before it damages our reputation." "I'm not doing that." "Ji-Hoon," I said no. "Adia is being attacked because she stood with me, because she helped me fight back against Min Seo. I won't abandon her now. Even if it costs you everything?" "Even then." His mother sighed. "You really care about her, don't you?" "I love her," Ji-Hoon said, the realization hitting him as he spoke. "I'm in love with her, Mother, and I'm not walking away." "Then I hope she's worth it," his mother said, but her tone had softened. "For your sake." That evening, Adia emerged from her office with a flash drive. "I have it. Everything we need." The evidence was damning. Emails between Chairman Park and editors at 3 major publications. Financial transfers disguised as advertising purchases. Detailed instructions on which stories to plant and when. It wasn't just about destroying Adia. It was a coordinated attack meant to force Ji-Hoon back into line, to make him choose between his family's reputation and his business partner. "They underestimated you," Ji-Hoon said, looking through the files. "Both of us." "They underestimated what we'd do for each other," Adia corrected. She looked exhausted, dark circles under her eyes. "But, Ji-Hoon, if we release this, there's no going back. The Park family will be ruined. Really ruined this time. And your relationship with them, with that whole social circle, it's over." "I know. Are you sure you want to do this?" Ji-Hoon thought about the life he'd been building, the honesty he'd learned to practice, the partnership he'd found with Adia, the person he was becoming instead of the person he'd been expected to be. "I'm sure," he said. "Let's do it." They released everything the next morning, not to the business journals that had run the smear pieces, but to investigative reporters known for thorough, honest work. The story exploded across the news cycle. Corruption, media manipulation, a powerful family using their influence to destroy competition. The backlash against the Parks was swift and brutal. Chairman Park resigned from multiple boards. Min Seo's own business ventures lost investors. The family that had seemed untouchable was brought low by their own tactics. Ji-Hoon's phone rang constantly. His father demanding explanations, business associates choosing sides, reporters wanting statements. Through it all, Adia stayed beside him, a steady presence in the chaos. "Are you okay?" she asked after a particularly difficult call with his father. "I don't know," Ji-Hoon admitted. "I just burned down my family's oldest alliance. My father barely speaks to me. Half our social circle thinks I've lost my mind. But I can look at myself in the mirror," he finished. "I can sleep at night, and I have you, which makes everything else bearable." Adia moved closer, wrapping her arms around him. He held her tight, drawing strength from her warmth. "I love you," he said into her hair. "I should have said it before, but I love you, Adia." She pulled back to look at him, tears glistening in her eyes. "I love you too, even though you're stubborn and controlling and sometimes infuriatingly self-righteous. Hey, but also brave," she continued, smiling through the tears, "and capable of growth and worth believing in." He cupped her face gently, wiping away a tear with his thumb. "We're going to be okay, right? All of this. It's going to work out?" "I think so," Adia said. "It won't be easy. Your family needs time. The business will take hits. But yeah, I think we're going to be okay." He kissed her forehead, lingering there. "Together?" "Together," she confirmed. They stood like that for a long moment, holding each other while the world rearranged itself around them. Outside, Boston continued its busy life, indifferent to their struggles. But inside this moment, they had each other. And that was enough. Part 4. The fallout took weeks to settle. Ji-Hoon's father stopped speaking to him entirely, communicating only through Tai Yang when business absolutely required it. His mother was more understanding, but clearly torn between her husband and her son. Extended family members took sides, creating fractures that might never fully heal. But there were bright spots, too. Tai Yang stepped up in ways Ji-Hoon had never imagined, managing family politics while running operations. "Hyung, you did the right thing," he said during one particularly difficult week. "Father doesn't see it yet, but he will. You stood up for what mattered." "I hope you're right," Ji-Hoon replied. "I am. Trust me." The business recovered faster than expected. Turns out taking a public stand against corruption actually attracted clients who valued integrity. New partnerships formed, often with companies who'd been watching Adia's work in East Africa and wanted to be part of something meaningful. "We have more opportunities than we can handle," Adia said during a strategy session, looking slightly overwhelmed. "I need to hire another 20 people just to keep up." "Good problem to have," Ji-Hoon pointed out. "True, but still." She leaned back in her chair, rubbing her eyes. "Sometimes I miss when it was simple. When it was just me and a vision and too much coffee." "You can't go back to simple. Not now." "I know. Doesn't mean I don't miss it sometimes." Ji-Hoon understood. Growth was exciting, but also terrifying. Every new employee, every new contract, every expansion into new territory brought fresh risks. The stakes kept getting higher. "Want to get out of here?" he asked suddenly. Adia looked up, surprised. "What?" "Just leave. Take the afternoon off. Do something that has nothing to do with work. We have the presentation for Tai Yang can handle it. Come on. When's the last time either of us just existed without an agenda?" She considered for maybe 3 seconds before standing. "Okay, let's go." They ended up at the New England Aquarium, wandering through exhibits like tourists. Adia was fascinated by everything, pressing her face close to the glass to watch sea turtles glide by, laughing at the antics of the penguins. "We don't have oceans like this in Eritrea," she explained. "I mean, we have coastline, but nothing with this kind of marine life. This is incredible." Ji-Hoon found himself watching her more than the exhibits. The pure joy on her face, the way she lit up explaining interesting facts she'd learned from the plaques, the childlike wonder that made her seem years younger. "What?" she asked, catching him staring. Nothing, just, I like seeing you like this. Happy. She took his hand, threading their fingers together. I'm happy a lot lately. You might have noticed. Because of the business success? Because of you, she corrected. The business is great, don't get me wrong, but you make me happy just by existing. They found a bench overlooking the giant ocean tank, watching sharks and rays swim in lazy circles. Families moved around them, children pressing against the glass with excitement, parents trying to manage the chaos. Do you want that someday? Adia asked quietly. Kids, family, the whole traditional thing? Ji-Hoon had never really thought about it before. His path had always been so clearly defined. Take over the business, marry appropriately, produce heirs to continue the legacy. But now, freed from those expectations, he actually considered what he wanted. Maybe, he said honestly, but not because I'm supposed to, only if it's with someone I really love, someone who wants it too. That seems wise. What about you? Adia was quiet for a moment. My parents had me late in life. They'd almost given up on having children when I came along. They poured everything into making sure I had opportunities they never did. She paused. Sometimes I feel guilty, like having my own family would mean I wasn't focused enough on making their sacrifice worthwhile. That's a lot of pressure. Tell me about it. She leaned her head on his shoulder. But lately I've been thinking, maybe I can honor their sacrifice by being happy, by building a life that matters, not just a business that succeeds. And what would that life look like? I don't know yet. Still figuring it out. She looked up at him. But I know I want you in it, however that looks. Ji-Hoon kissed the top of her head, breathing in the scent of her shampoo. I want you in mine too. That's the only thing I'm sure of anymore. They sat like that until the aquarium started closing, reluctant to leave their peaceful bubble. But eventually, they had to face the real world again. And the real world had complications. Ji-Hoon's phone had 17 missed calls, 12 from Tae-yang, 5 from his mother, none from his father, which somehow felt worse. Something's wrong, he said, calling his brother back. Tae-yang answered on the first ring. Hyung, where have you been? I've been trying to reach you for hours. I turned off notifications. What happened? Father had a heart attack. He's at Massachusetts General. Mother's asking for you. The world tilted. Ji-Hoon grabbed Adia's arm to steady himself, his mind going blank with shock. He's alive. They're running tests. But Hyung, you need to come. Now. They rushed to the hospital, Adia driving while Ji-Hoon sat in passenger seat feeling numb. His father, the man who'd seemed invincible, who'd built an empire through sheer force of will, was lying in a hospital bed, vulnerable and human. His mother met them in the waiting room, looking smaller than he'd ever seen her. She pulled Ji-Hoon into a hug, something she rarely did. He was angry, she said, her voice breaking. So angry about everything. The business, the Park family, you. He wouldn't let it go. And then he collapsed. Guilt crashed over Ji-Hoon. His choices had caused this. His rebellion against tradition, his relationship with Adia, his public stand against the Parks. All of it had stressed his father to the breaking point. This is my fault, he whispered. No, his mother said firmly. Your father's health problems started years ago. High blood pressure, high cholesterol. The doctors warned him to slow down. He refused to listen. She cupped his face. This is not your fault, Ji-Hoon. This is life. Adia hung back, clearly uncomfortable being present for such a private family moment. But Ji-Hoon reached for her hand, pulling her into the circle. She should be here, he told his mother. She's important to me. His mother studied Adia for a long moment, then nodded. Then she stays. They waited for hours. Tae-yang arrived with his girlfriend, Ji-Min. Extended family members trickled in, filling the waiting room with hushed conversations and worried glances. Some ignored Ji-Hoon, their disapproval obvious. Others offered quiet support. Finally, a doctor emerged. "Mr. Kim is stable. It was a mild heart attack. We're keeping him for observation, but his prognosis is good if he makes lifestyle changes." The relief was overwhelming. Ji-Hoon felt his legs go weak, and Adia steadied him with a hand on his back. "Can we see him?" his mother asked. "Immediate family only, 2 at a time and only for a few minutes." His mother went first with Tae-yang. When they emerged, his mother looked emotionally drained but calmer. "He wants to see you," she told Ji-Hoon. "Are you sure?" "He asked for you specifically." Ji-Hoon entered the hospital room alone, his heart pounding. His father lay in the bed, looking pale and tired, hooked up to various monitors, but his eyes were clear when they found Ji-Hoon. "Father," Ji-Hoon said, approaching slowly. "Sit down," his father said, his voice weaker than Ji-Hoon had ever heard it. "We need to talk." Ji-Hoon sat, unsure what to expect. An apology? More anger? Reconciliation? "I've been thinking," his father began, "lying in that ambulance, wondering if I was going to die. I thought about my life, what I built, what I sacrificed." He paused, breathing carefully. "And I realized I pushed you to be me, to want what I wanted, to value what I valued. Father, you don't have to—" "Let me finish." His father's hand found his, the grip weak but determined. "You're not me, Ji-Hoon. You never were. And trying to make you into me almost destroyed both of us." Tears burned Ji-Hoon's eyes. "I never wanted to disappoint you. I know, and I was so focused on legacy, on tradition, that I couldn't see you were building something better." His father's eyes grew misty. "Your mother told me about the business, how you and that woman, Adia, you're creating real partnerships, helping people. That's worth more than all my warehouses and shipping routes." "You built something incredible," Ji-Hoon protested. "Everything I have is because of your foundation. But what you're doing with it, that's all you." His father squeezed his hand. "I'm proud of you, son. I should have said it years ago." Ji-Hoon broke down then, tears streaming down his face. All the tension, all the fear, all the desperate need for approval. It poured out in messy, ugly sobs. His father pulled him close, awkward with the IV lines and monitors, but the embrace was real. "I'm sorry," Ji-Hoon gasped, "for causing you stress, for the conflict." "Stop apologizing for living your life," his father said. "Just maybe visit more? Bring that woman. I should meet her properly." Ji-Hoon laughed through his tears. "You want to meet Adia? Your mother says she's impressive, that she challenges you, makes you better." His father smiled slightly. "Any woman who can do that deserves my respect." When Ji-Hoon emerged from the room, his face blotchy from crying, Adia took one look at him and opened her arms. He walked into them, letting her hold him while he composed himself. "It's okay?" she asked quietly. "It's okay," he confirmed. "Better than okay, actually. He wants to meet you." "Oh, no pressure then," she said. But she was smiling. Over the next few days, as his father recovered, Ji-Hoon watched his family dynamics shift. His mother and Adia bonded over their shared exasperation with stubborn men. Tae-Yang's girlfriend Ji-Min turned out to have family from East Africa, and she and Adia spent hours comparing cultural notes. Even extended family members who'd been cold started warming up once they saw how happy Ji-Hoon was. His father's formal introduction to Adia came a week later, after he'd been released from the hospital. They met at the family restaurant, the same place Ji-Hoon had confronted Tae-Yang months earlier. Adia wore a simple dress, elegant but not showy. She'd told Ji-Hoon she was nervous, which he found oddly endearing. This woman who'd faced down corporate rivals and navigated international business deals was worried about impressing his father. "Mr. Kim," she said, offering a respectful bow. "Thank you for agreeing to meet with me." His father studied her for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then he smiled, genuinely smiled. "Call me Father Kim, and please sit. I understand you like our Korean food?" The meal was surprisingly pleasant. His father asked intelligent questions about Eritrea, about Adia's business philosophy, about her family. She answered honestly, not trying to impress, but just being herself. "Your father was a freedom fighter?" Father Kim asked at one point. "Yes, he fought for 30 years so I could have a country to call home." "That's honorable. True sacrifice." He paused. "I fought too, in my own way. Not in wars, but in business, building something from nothing. I wonder if our fathers would have understood each other." "I think they would have," Adia said softly. "They both wanted better for their children." Father Kim nodded, looking at Ji-Hoon. "And their children want better for the world. That's how it should be." As they left the restaurant, Father Kim pulled Ji-Hoon aside. "She's good for you. I can see it." "She is," Ji-Hoon agreed. "Then don't be stupid. Don't let her get away." Ji-Hoon laughed. "I don't plan to." But his father's words stayed with him. Don't be stupid. Don't let her get away. As if it was that simple. As if love was just about holding on tight enough. A month later, Moremi International and the Kim family business announced a formal merger. Not a buyout or takeover. A true partnership with shared leadership and vision. Adia and Ji-Hoon would serve as co-CEOs, with Tae-yang as COO. "This is huge," Tae-yang said during the press conference planning. "People are going to have opinions." "Let them," Adia replied. "We're building something that works. That's all that matters." The press conference went smoothly, though the questions were pointed. How would they handle cultural differences? What about family dynamics? Could a romantic relationship and business partnership coexist? "We're figuring it out as we go," Ji-Hoon answered honestly. "But we're committed to transparency, to fairness, to building something that serves more than just profit." "And the personal relationship," one reporter pressed. Adia took that question. "We're together, yes. We're in love, yes. And we think that makes us better business partners, not worse, because we actually care about each other's success, not just our own." The questions kept coming, but they handled them together. United front, shared vision, genuine partnership. That evening, exhausted from the media circus, they escaped to Adia's apartment. She kicked off her heels, groaning in relief. "I hate press conferences," she declared, collapsing on the couch. "You were brilliant," Ji-Hoon said, sitting beside her. "We were brilliant, that's the point." She turned to look at him. "Are you happy? Really happy? Because this is permanent now. We've tied our lives together professionally in a way that's going to be very complicated to undo. Do you want to undo it? No, but I want to make sure you don't regret it." Ji-Hoon pulled her close, pressing a kiss to her temple. "I don't regret anything. Not the conflict with my father, not the battle with Minseo, not any of it, because all of it led me here. To you, to this life, to becoming someone I actually like." "Someone I like too," Adia murmured, curling into him. They sat in comfortable silence, the city lights twinkling beyond the windows. Ji-Hoon thought about how far he'd come from that day in his office when he dismissed a delivery woman without a second glance. How much he'd learned, how much he'd grown. "I love you," he said, because it felt important to say it out loud. "I love you too," Adia replied, "even when you're impossible. Especially when I'm impossible, maybe especially then." 6 months later, they stood in a different kind of venue. Not a business conference room or negotiation space, but a beautiful garden in the Berkshires. Family and friends gathered around them. Ji-Hoon's parents sitting beside Adia's parents, who'd flown in from Eritrea. Tae-yang stood as best man. Adia's sister Leah served as maid of honor. The ceremony blended Korean and Eritrean traditions, creating something entirely new and entirely theirs. They'd written their own vows, promises that acknowledged both the romance and the partnership they'd built. I promise to challenge you when you're wrong, Adia said, her voice steady despite tears in her eyes. To celebrate you when you're right, to stand beside you in success and failure, to build not just a business, but a life that matters. I promise to listen, Ji-Hoon replied, to see you, really see you, every single day, to value your voice as much as my own, to never take for granted the gift of your partnership, your love, your presence in my life. They exchanged rings, simple bands that represented their commitment. When the officiant pronounced them married, Ji-Hoon cupped Adia's face gently, pressing his forehead to hers. We did it, he whispered. We did, she agreed. They kissed then. Not for show, not for the audience, but for themselves. A kiss that held everything they'd been through, everything they'd overcome, everything they were promising to face together. The reception was a joyful chaos of cultures colliding. Korean dishes sat beside Eritrean ones. Traditional music from both countries played. Ji-Hoon's father danced with Adia's mother, both of them laughing at their inability to follow each other's steps. This is what the world should look like, Tae-yang said, watching the celebration. Different people, different backgrounds, just connecting. That's what we're building, Ji-Hoon agreed, one partnership at a time. Late in the evening, Ji-Hoon and Adia snuck away from the party, walking through the garden under stars that seemed impossibly bright. Happy? Adia asked, taking his hand. Impossibly happy, Ji-Hoon confirmed. You. Completely happy. She stopped walking, turning to face him. I never thought I'd have this. A partner who truly sees me. A family that accepts me. A life that feels right. Me neither, Ji-Hoon admitted. I thought I had to choose between duty and happiness. You showed me I could have both, just not in the way I expected. They stood there in the garden, holding each other while music and laughter drifted from the reception. Tomorrow they'd fly to Eritrea for a second ceremony, bringing Ji-Hoon's family to meet Adia's extended relatives. Next month, they'd launch a new initiative connecting small businesses across 3 continents. Next year, who knew what challenges would come? But tonight, they just existed. 2 people who'd found each other against all odds, who'd built something beautiful from conflict and chaos. Thank you, Ji-Hoon said softly. For what? For not giving up on me, for seeing potential where everyone else saw arrogance, for loving me enough to let me become who I needed to be. Adia rose on her toes, kissing him softly. Thank you for being brave enough to change, for choosing love over legacy, for being my partner in every sense of the word. They returned to the reception hand in hand, ready to celebrate with the family they'd built, not through blood or obligation, but through choice and commitment. 3 years later, Ji-Hoon sat in his office looking at a photo from that wedding day. Adia stood beside him in the image, both of them laughing at something off camera. They looked happy, genuinely, completely happy. His desk was covered in plans for their latest venture, a fellowship program bringing young entrepreneurs from Africa to work with established businesses in the United States. Adia's idea, executed with their combined resources. You're going to be late for the pitch meeting, Adia said, appearing in his doorway. She was 6 months pregnant, carrying their daughter with the same confidence she brought to everything else. Just remembering, Ji-Hoon said, gesturing to the photo. She waddled over, studying the image. We were so young. 3 years isn't that long. In years, maybe, in life experience? She laughed. We've lived a decade in 3 years. Ji-Hoon stood, pulling her gently into his arms. His hands rested on her growing belly, feeling their daughter kick. Any regrets? He asked. Not even one, Adia replied immediately. You? Only that I didn't meet you sooner. Think of all the time we wasted being stubborn. We needed that time, to become who we needed to be for each other. She kissed his cheek. Now come on, Tae-yang is probably wondering where we are. They walked through their offices together, past employees who represented a dozen different countries and cultures, past conference rooms named after cities in Korea and East Africa, past the vision statement they'd written together, building bridges, creating opportunities, changing lives. It wasn't perfect. They still argued about strategy, still faced resistance from traditionalists on both sides, still struggled with balancing family and business and personal needs. But they faced it together as partners, as equals, as two people who'd chosen each other every single day, and that made all the difference. If you enjoyed this story of love, partnership, and finding strength in unexpected places, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more heartwarming stories about real people building real connections. Drop a comment telling us what part resonated most with you, because we love hearing from you. Stay blessed, and remember that sometimes the best partnerships come from the most unlikely beginnings.